In Buddhism, mettā and karunā, or loving kindness and compassion, are two of the Brahmavihāras, or divine abodes. In Confucianism, ren, or human-heartedness, is Confucius's prime virtue. And Aristotle called this virtue philia, or friendliness. So what is benevolence? Is it something we're all born with? The Chinese philosopher Mencius asked us to consider this thought experiment. Imagine coming across a child about to fall into a well. Mencius said anyone seeing a child about to do this would be filled with a sense of shock, horror, and dismay. And that person would want to help that child and rescue that child. And Mencius goes on to say they wouldn't be doing this because they were trying to curry favor with the child's parents. And they wouldn't be doing this because the child's cries were unpleasant. And they wouldn't be doing this because they're trying to impress their neighbors with how courageous and heroic they are. It would just be their first impulse in that situation. And Mencius went on to say that anyone who didn't feel that couldn't even be considered a person. So where does this benevolence come from? Mencius thought we were all born with what he called the seed, or duan, of compassion and benevolence. But whether this seed would flourish or not depended on how it was watered and how it was fed. Mencius believed that we first developed this feeling of benevolence within the matrix of our families, with our relationships with our parents and with our siblings and with our grandparents. These are the people we first feel love for. But then Mencius went on to say that as we grow older, we learn to extend these feelings outwards to playmates and friends and teachers and other people that we meet. And that it's a lifelong project to gradually extend these feelings further and further. Now, some people seem to be relatively good at this, but other people really can only identify with people in their in-group. They can feel this feeling towards people in their own family, their own tribe, their own religion, their own caste, their own social group, and so on. But it's harder to kind of feel that for other people who are outside of those categories. Whereas other people seem to come to it relatively easily and seem to extend it to even rivals and difficult people in their lives. We know that we all tend to kind of extend it almost automatically to animals that are fluffy and furry and cute. And it's a little bit harder to extend it to crustaceans and arachnids and certain kinds of insects. So there seems to be a kind of a natural boundary that we have to push against in order to be able to expand this boundary outward. The German-born psychiatrist Fritz Perls, who helped found Gestalt therapy, used to talk about an ego boundary, a boundary, an imaginary line around us that separated those people who were us from those people who were them. So the people inside the boundary are the people we naturally identify with, people from our social group, people from our church or temple, people who are in our profession and so forth. We naturally tend to kind of think of them as us in some kind of way. And then there are those other people, them, who we're not like them at all and they're not like us at all. And they're outside the boundary and they don't get the same degree of love or care or respect. And Pearl said about this boundary that it's flexible, that we can expand it so we include more and more people in it, but we can also shrink it. We can also exchange who's on the inside and the outside. So imagine, for example, that you convert from one religion to another, and then the people who used to be one of us are now them, and the people that you now belong to, the new group you belong to, they become us. So those kinds of changes occur as well. But Pearl stressed that no matter how far we stretch it, no matter how porous the boundary is, it's always there to some extent. It's always something that we have to push outwards. And the Buddhists and Confucians all agree that that's our main job as we mature in life, that we ought to be pushing this boundary further and further out as much as we can. Is there a natural limit to how far we can extend it? There really isn't any definitive answer to that. The only way to find out is to do the experiment yourself, to kind of look at who you're able to extend those feelings to now, and then realize there's a boundary that you can't go beyond today, and then wonder about tomorrow. Will I still feel the same way tomorrow, or will I find a way to include those other people, the them, in the boundary tomorrow? It's an ongoing experiment that we're all asked to discover for ourselves.